Hello, good evening, Oral Gibbes, and welcome to Oral Gibbes Live. And with me this evening is Member of Parliament and Leader of National Alliance, MP Mr. Marlin. How are you doing, sir?
Good evening, Oral. I'm doing fine, and good evening to viewers.
Well, it's good to have you in the program this evening. Thanks for accepting our invitation. And you had a good day yesterday?
Oh well, it was like reliving Good Friday all over again. Um, it was a very quiet and maybe you can say peaceful day. Um, I've gotten quite some calls from people wondering what was happening, what went down. Most people were happy that they were given a day off, but one of the concerns that people have is that it does not promote complacency. If you can remember 20 years ago with Hurricane Luis, we had like two near hits before. It was a hurricane coming, people were preparing, and then nothing happened. Then a hurricane is coming again, people try to take it serious, and then nothing happened. And then when Luis was coming, people felt, oh, the same thing is going to happen again. And it's kind of like last minute, some people started to really realize this thing is coming and it's a monster. I think the call by the Prime Minister was good in the sense of saying, well, hey, if a hurricane is coming, that people need to be prepared, people need to be off the road, businesses like casinos and restaurants close doors so people can go home and be off the street. But from early Sunday, it was already made known and announced that the hurricane had dissipated. It was no longer a threat. It was bringing neither wind nor water to St. Martin. So to maintain the fact that, the Prime Minister said, this is it until further notice, and he's going to issue a new bulletin 12 o'clock the following day, I think there was nothing wrong with coming back earlier and making an announcement so people know where they stand. It's interesting, the amount of people who, let's say, adhere to it.
Yeah.
I was on the street. I went over with my son, and there were some Chinese that were open. I was made to understand that the police had shut them down after, but I mean the island was shut down, so it gave that feeling like a Good Friday. And important is, Oral, that we are dead center in the hurricane season, and I think people don't need to put their guards down. There's Erica coming. This one is predicted not to grow in strength. It's where it's at is where the strength might remain. But once it's coming close to us, which again is the indication that it will, I think people need to be prepared. People need to take it seriously, and look out for the elderly in the community. Look out for the sick people, those people who need to have medication. That a family member make sure that the medication is in stock, because if God forbid something happens and you can't get out and they can't get to their medication. There are areas like where I live, unfortunately, we are like the first to go and the last to get back.
I heard electricity went in St. Peter's yesterday, someone told me.
Well, we always, whenever there's a hurricane, we are hooked up together with the St. Peter's South Reward area. With Gonzalo, we did not have electricity from high afternoon.
Oh.
And Rafi Boseman lives in the house below me.
Oh.
There's just a wall separating us, and I can look over the wall, look over down by him, and he had electricity throughout the hurricane and thereafter.
Oh.
And we didn't have electricity for some like 2 or 3 weeks.
How was that?
because a light pole fell in St. Peter's.
Oh.
I mean, it's, you feel like you live in a third world country compared to the rest of the island because we are not underground. And I was speaking to a Gibbes official the other day, and I told him that I'm planning to spearhead a request to Gibbes asking to either give us a different rate or treat us equally. Because Hurricane Luis is now going to be 20 years since the hurricane devastated St. Martin, and the decision was taken to put a grid underground, and some areas are underground and some are not. But we are paying the same rate. It's like paying for a business class ticket.
That makes sense what you're
but
saying.
flying
Right.
in the back of
Yeah.
flying in the back of the plane. Those who pay for business class get the comfortable seats, get better service, etc., etc., etc. But we are paying the same rate. In my case, let's say me and my neighbor, we are paying the identical rate, but if Erica gets anywhere close to St. Martin, GB cuts us off while those who are underground stay on. And I'm not saying that we should stay on. I agree, if you're not underground, it poses a danger. If a tree falls, a tree can break a high tension wire, and that can create a problem for anybody. So yes, as a precautionary measure, it's good to take. But then, since you're not providing me with state-of-the-art service and facilities, then I should pay less. Simply, that's the way I see it. But to get back to it, I think it was maybe a good dry run. And this morning I was listening to a program, and a caller called in, and I agreed with him that while government is saying that they are ready and the trenches are clean, there are still several trenches on the island that have not been cleaned or have not been cleaned adequately. And if we really get serious rain, there are going to be areas that will flood.
Definitely.
That would be unfortunate.
But I just before I started this program with you, we taped with the Prime Minister, which is going to be aired soon. And I said to the Prime Minister that I got to compliment the government here on what happened in the coordination and cooperation between Dutch and French St. Martin, because when I drove through both sides of the island yesterday, I was surprised to see how they had coordinated all of this. Gendarmes at the border with the police, bases closed on both sides. Yeah, we didn't get a hurricane, but I'm not going to criticize them because I think it's important, and I hope we can maintain this kind of cooperation. So in that sense, I told the Prime Minister, I said, look, you guys did a great job in that area. A+, I mean, it was really
I've seen by the frontier over at Oyster Pond.
Yeah.
I've seen 3 police officers and some like 2 or 3 gendarmes, a couple of feet away from each other. The gendarme on the French side and the police on the Dutch side, and I kind of frowned. I was wondering whether, somebody had committed a crime and they were securing the borders. I have no idea what it was all about. But we have a new sous-prefet on the French side, and that probably, play a role in terms of the working relationship. Or could it be also that the Prime Minister lives on the French side and can hold talks while he's at home with the authorities on the French side? But if indeed that was all part of the exercise, then I think it's a step in the right direction.
Yeah, he did confirm to me that was part of it, and it was good. I want to ask you about what happened in Parliament now, integrity, because your party did not go along with the vote in Parliament on the integrity chamber, but the UP coalition government did, along with member of Parliament representing the Democratic Party.
Well, to begin with, each faction has its own responsibility, and actually each member of Parliament. But overall, from the very beginning, members of Parliament basically across the board had serious concerns with the the content of the integrity chamber draft law. The National Alliance faction, we took it even from a different angle and point of view, in the sense that besides some of it being fundamentally wrong, in terms of trying to legislate, basically you can call it morality, or legislate what's right and what's wrong. You don't put that in, you would say it's wrong to drive on the right hand side of the road, or it's wrong to drink while you're driving, or be on the phone when you're driving. But in terms of morality, what is acceptable in one community may not be acceptable in another community. That's one. But two, we feel that the problem that we have isn't the lack of an integrity chamber. The problem that we have is we have a whole platoon of rules and regulations that are not enforced. That's one. And two, we have institutions that can carry out and have carried out investigations. And again, the reports are handed in and they stay there. Case in point, with the cadastre, for instance, okay, where there have been reports from the Ombudsman, have prepared reports and submitted those to Parliament and to government and to Parliament, and basically had to sort of call back and say, hey guys, what are you doing? The audit chamber made an integrity report. And lately, that one probably caught everybody sort of off guard when we read the announcement that the prosecutor's office was making use of provisions in the law to start a civil investigation into the operations at the harbor, and specifically as well the issues surrounding the causeway. It is not a criminal investigation as yet, but it can lead to one. Now, if that is possible, okay, if that is possible, the allegations of wrongdoings in GBE, the allegations of wrongdoings at the harbor, the allegations of wrongdoing in some of the government departments, they too can be investigated the same way. We've had 1, 2, 3 integrity reports. One of the questions that we've asked government, and you have not received any answer basically yet, is does government agree with the content of the report? So if somebody tells government that, hey, government, you have serious issues in the licensing departments. People, let's say, are selling licenses like crazy. So what did government do? So you're going to set up a chamber for the chamber now to go and verify what these reports have written, and then tell government, indeed, they're selling licenses? One of the things that have been seriously lacking in this whole so-called lack of integrity on St. Martin is the functioning of the prosecutor's office. We've had too many cases. It's no integrity chamber that brought the cases forward. It is no Dutch members of parliament who brought these cases forward. The investigation and the preliminary arrest or whatnot was all done by the authorities here. And once you compile your report and say, well, we believe there's a problem here, prosecutor, you do your job, that is where the bottleneck had a problem. And for instance, the vote buying case was one of them. Okay.
What's that? What happened to that now?
Well, you've had the interesting thing where the judge did something basically unheard of, and said, no, I'm not prosecuting the case because you didn't do a good job at preparing it. get out of my chambers, go back, do a better investigation, and bring specifically mention the leader of a political party, the leader of our party. I want to see him in my courthouse because he's the main culprit behind this. It's like, hello, what's going on there? A judge is supposed to judge the case as presented to him, not be the judge and be the prosecutor at the same time. When the case was finally brought to him, what did the judge say? No, that's class justice. I ain't going to prosecute just some of them and leave some of the others, prosecute a small fry and leave the big ones get away. So now apparently it was like, no, the case has to be tried accordingly still, and that too is like, up in smoke. But
this isn't more than 4 years now?
Well, it's exactly 4 years. No,
it's more than
it was 2010.
Yeah,
it was more
so
than 4 years.
Yeah.
When the case broke, it was in 2010, and when the investigation started, and when the whole thing blowed up in the police station, it was in 2010. We're in 2015, heading towards the end of 2015, because we're already in, heading for September. So in the last quarter of the year, so you're going on 5 years, and so we say if anywhere needed strengthening, if any place needed investigating, then it should have been the prosecutor's office, because all indications were that it is not functioning. It is not up to par. It is not strong enough. And to get back now to the vote in Parliament, what triggered the vote the way it went? And it is sort of disgusting. It is a pity to see that members of the governing faction, and particularly the faction leader, had one big dramatic presentation, came back from Colombia and actually still on sick leave, but flew in to drop that message. And basically the essence of the message was the integrity chamber as presented was unacceptable, and he would rather die standing than to have to live on his knees. He will not accept this. Under no circumstances can it have their support. They proceeded to present some 16 or 18 changes. Some 18 changes. And what we were made to understand, the Dutch told Minister of Justice Dennis Richardson, absolutely not. They will not entertain any changes, and particularly not those. And if those changes are carried through, they're coming with a measure of supervision. And that is where I'm saying the public wants to know, who is running the country, who is leading the people. Because at one end, both the minister and the members of the coalition make a whole lot of noise and accuse the Dutch of interfering and meddling in their affairs, and they won't stand for it, and they won't tolerate it, and they would go to jail, and they would die, and they would this, and they would that. And then when it comes to act, the old people say, well, you got to put your money where your mouth is. Then they lap their tail and they buckle over. Because if you are so convinced that the Dutch has no reason, absolutely no reason to interfere, then go ahead and do your thing. And like I told somebody, the now known story to everybody, if Rosa Parks had buckled under pressure when she was told to get up for a white man to sit in the seat, and if she was afraid of confronting the white man and the driver, she would have gotten up, not to get in any trouble, not to get in any fight, and probably not to be thrown off of the bus. But she stood her ground and she refused to. And that triggered change. So if you believe, if you're convinced that based on our Constitution and based on our Kingdom Charter, the Dutch has no right to interfere, then act accordingly. But don't make a whole lot of noise, a whole lot of drama in Parliament. Make people believe that the up faction is going to stand up for what they believe, and then when you come to vote, you lap your tail to avoid a measure of supervision. And what you have is what you have rejected from before we went on recess. So when on the 23rd of May, the Saturday morning, when Minister of Justice Dennis Richardson signed that protocol on behalf of the Prime Minister of St. Martin, and basically all hell broke loose. And when we had the meeting in June, that the coalition basically said, no, we want changes and major changes, as this thing can't go down, and we're going to deal with it after recess. But the Dutch didn't go sleep. The Dutch didn't go on recess. The Dutch acted immediately and informed the government on the 10th of July that since they were not complying, since they were not adhering to the agreement, they are coming with a measure of supervision. That is what now made the government and the coalition panic, because they don't want a confrontation with the Dutch.
So they're right now in The Hague. Minister of Justice
Minister
and
of
Finance,
Justice and the Minister of Finance
right,
are in The Hague, trying to fight off measures of supervision. So rather than governing, you're constant on the defense with the Dutch over what you think you should do and what you think you should do, and you're still caving in and giving in. The only change that they made was that the persons to be appointed have to be appointed by a national decree of St. Martin. So big deal. But guess what? It's still a Dutchman put forward under a binding agreement by the Dutch. So if you air your mouth and make a whole lot of noise stating that if you have an integrity chamber, it's got to be yours, and you got to appoint the people, and you got to do this, and you, and you, and you, and you, but then you cave in, and the Dutch are still going to appoint somebody that you can't tell them anything about, and you agree basically that it will be supported by a secretariat, and in order to facilitate those people, wherever they're coming from, they don't need to go through a residence and a work permit, they and their family. You have accepted it. You have accepted it. You make a whole lot of noise in the preliminary handling of it. Make a whole list of suggestions, changes that would have changed the content of it dramatically, and then you cave in, you buckle in, because you're afraid to get the Dutch angry, and then you make a whole lot of noise about the Dutch has no right to interfere, and we are the highest body, and we pass the laws, and we decide, and we decide, and we decide, and we decide. But at the end, the Dutch decide. And I'm saying no, the National Alliance faction, we stood our ground in the sense that we said from the onset, government has not made it clear, and up to now either, they have made it clear where they're going to get the money to pay for this, and what added value it would have at a given moment when we line up the whole scala of bodies that can carry out investigations, that have done so, made reports, and nothing happens. Institutions that you have, like the Ombudsman, like the Audit Chamber, that can carry out investigations. You have in in the justice system alone, you have so many, including now the prosecutor's office have now started investigations. So the question is, so why can't they start whenever, let's say there's some smoke, go and see if there's fire. And if there's none, then there's none. They don't need an integrity chamber to do
Let
it.
me ask this because, and I say this all the time. There was a government that was being formed just after the elections last year. Your party along with us and the DP, and it didn't work out. It fell through. And it's my belief that had that government taken office, we wouldn't be in the situation we are today. Maybe I'm wrong here.
No. That's, coming from me, might let's say, come across like bias, because you're not going to be a key player in something and then say, boy, if that thing had gone through, it would have been a fiasco. There was no reason for us to believe that it would be. To begin with, one of the big differences, all of the ministers that were being put forward by us, with the exception probably of one minister, but for sure the minister from the US party and the ministers from the National Alliance, all of them were persons who ran on a slate, who went to the people and asked for their support and asked for their vote and said, if you vote for me, I'll work for you. That was one. Two, in record time, in 3 weeks, we had a complete governing program of some 180 pages, I think it was. And not just a project, but there was a total integration of the policy objectives, how this policy objective will affect the Ministry of Justice, how will it affect education, how will it affect finance, how will it affect ROMI if it has to. So the complete overview and correlation, setting of goals, short-term objectives and goals. This government is in office now for some 9 months. Okay, election next week would be exactly a year since we had elections, and the biggest party in this government campaigned under the slogan of, they're ready, we're ready. And what people are asking now, ready for what? Because after being in government for all these months, A, the government is not complete, and B, it was a joke when they finally presented a governing program, because who presented a governing program? A couple of members of parliament submitted a program to government to be executed. So rather than the government governing, the government coming with a governing program and the coalition partners agreeing that that's the way to go, and there's nothing wrong with them having worked along with them in making this program. But here, the members of parliament present a governing program to government and tell government, execute.
It's kind of odd in a way.
The government signs a letter, a cover letter, and send it to parliament and say, this is the program we're going to execute in the next 4 years. So it's interesting when a debate comes up on the floor of parliament, because it would be clear, in my opinion, that you're going to get a situation where the members of parliament are going in one direction and the government in another one.
But
and the whole fallout, for instance, about this protocol that was signed, okay, by the Justice Minister in The Hague. You have the Justice Minister is supposed to be the minister who has to answer to the U.S. party. The leader of the U.S. party, Frank Richardson, came out and condemned the minister and basically called for his resignation. And what did the minister do? Tell him, no, not you. You asked me to resign. You didn't appoint me. It's the coalition that appointed me. And if the majority want me to go, then I will go. And it's almost like, okay, a stalemate. So if if members of parliament sent a program to the government, and the government, as the Dutch would say, lapt het aan zijn laars, you don't give two hoots about what the members of parliament want, the government going in their own direction, it would be interesting to see how it will all unfold. Because there is no leadership, there is no sense of direction, and it is a matter of take care of this, take care of that, do this, do that. Then you hear something is either happening or not happening. But there is no vision as to where to lead the country, as to where to take it, and in which direction it is going.
Few people in Parliament that can go up against you and Mrs. Westcott.
You know, I'm saying if one would really look at it, the government is its own worst enemy. Yes, you have experienced members of parliament in opposition, but sometimes it frustrates you to see how it all functions or how it doesn't function. This functionality in government and even in parliament at times. But I think one of the biggest problems the government has is itself. You start off by shrouding government in secrecy, shutting the doors of communication, not talking to the people. So if you don't talk to the people are going to create stories, let's say, of their own. They're going to create assessments of their own. They're going to have opinions of their own because government is not sharing information with the public. Government is not informing the public of anything. And like I said, I'm not saying it now to criticize the Prime Minister for how it turned out, but here it is, you make an announcement about a hurricane. There's a new development that people are really saying, wait, are we still on the hurricane watch? Is there a threat or whatnot? And government doesn't speak to them until the following day when government decide, okay, I'm going to come out of hibernation now and I'm going to say something. You got to communicate with the people constantly.
Let me take some calls here. Oral Gibbes live on call. Hello.
Good night, Mr. Gibbes. How are you?
I'm fine, thank you.
Okay, can I make a small contribution, please?
Yes, sir. Go right ahead, sir.
All right. Well, I have been living here for the last, how many years? Almost 30 years. And I've been fortunate to, acquire my Dutch rights, naturalized rights, or whatever, how you call it. And I'm fortunate to be able to take part in a few elections. But I've always been a strong, supporter of the opposition. But one of the feelings I'm getting is that the opposition is not strong enough. I find that they need to be more aggressive towards the government for things to happen. They shouldn't sit back and just take everything that goes down. I think that's the role of the opposition. Mr. Marlin is experienced and whatever. But I find that the National Alliance they need to be more aggressive, even if the others don't come on board who are in opposition. And I think until that happens, the government will still continue to do what they want. I'll hang up and listen. Thank you very much.
Okay.
All right.
That's one way of probably looking at it, depending on what it is somebody wants. Some people feel that an opposition got to get up every morning and just in this case, as I said, government just a few days ago presented a so-called governing program to government, to Parliament. In order to criticize government, to begin with, government needs to have a program. Government needs to have a sense of direction. Government needs to say what they're doing. We have brought government in Parliament to talk about the GBE. Can't get answers from them. We have brought government to talk about developments at the harbor and specifically the security contracts. We can't get anything out of them. And you can get up every day and criticize the government. And at a given moment, where are we heading? Where are we going? If you're just criticizing government every day and government not basically changing. I'm saying At a given moment the other day, I told somebody, every people get the government they deserve. And if the people themselves don't step up as well and demonstrate and let government know that they are unhappy, it will continue this way. Because what some of the same people who tell you got to speak out are going to tell you, oh, all they're doing is bickering,
Exactly.
bickering. When is this
Yeah.
bickering going to stop? Every day they're just bickering with the government. You understand?
Yeah.
You have another caller?
Let's take a coffee. Oh, Gibbes live and call. Hello.
Good evening.
Good evening.
I am a student, left Holland in 2005.
2005.
I came back to St. Martin in 2014. Now, my problem is, since we're on the topic of Gibbes, our country develops every 3 to 4 years, right? And when I left in 2005, we had Gibbes outages, Gibbes water outages, electricity problems. And now I came back practically after 10 years, and we still have that same issue. I mean, where is our country going? It's really sad, man. Have a good night.
Good night.
Yeah, it's indeed one of the things that I mentioned myself as well to one of the people in management in GB, and I said, you know, I admire the hard work that individual employees carry out, but something is wrong if in our area we were experiencing outages every day. Thank God now after hammering, they came, they checked, and it is now better. We had all the homes with three-phase meters were losing a phase practically every day. So you'd have part of the house with electricity, part of the house without
Right.
electricity. Your fridge is on, but your lights are working, or and it was a problem. And yes, I agree with the young man that this is not progress. If you go away to study and you leave GB in one state and you come back 10 years after and it's the same thing, it gives you reason to be concerned
Well,
about the
you know,
development taking place.
they've had some improvements, really, but the thing is that,
There's some basic things that
Yeah,
should not have
right.
been happening still.
yeah, I was over at GB many years ago with the late Mr. Lambert, and he showed me the area where the intake for water and everything else, and also there were plans to fix that. So when we had a storm and we had wind
Yeah.
from the south, GB wouldn't have to turn the engine
I
off.
was
We'll get-
commissioner, and we have sat with GBE and we've agreed, on certain recommendations to avoid the seawater when you have this
The
ground
problem's still
seas.
there.
And it's still there. So that's why I'm saying, where are the priorities?
Yeah.
Where are the priorities? GB wants to embark on investing millions in this and hundreds of millions in that. And the basic core business of GB to generate electricity and provide quality and affordable electricity to people, you're not living up to it.
Let's take a call for you, MP. Earl Gibbs live and call. Hello.
Good night. Good night to you and your guests.
Good night.
Good night, Doc.
Yes, what I am noticing that whenever a hurricane is expecting that, even though the cost of living already is high, government don't see to it that prices be frozen instead of go higher. What kind of a thing is this? We are not being represented. It is wrong. Parliament need to seriously work on it. And
Doc, I've seen. I'm not in the business.
a motion is made.
I'm not in the business of
Don't happen.
defending the government, but I've seen a notice just before Danny was developing that government said that prices were not allowed to be increased on certain items. I think they listed those
Right.
items, and the prices had to remain fixed before, during, and after the hurricane to avoid people, like batteries or certain food stuff, that it would jump from 1 guilder to 5 guilders. There was an announcement from government in that respect. So I'm not defending the government, but I have seen that announcement made this week,
Okay.
or last week.
Let me take a call if you happy about it. Or give that a call. Hello? You're on live call. Hello?
Under Parliament, William Marlin, it
Is that?
has not been defended. No prices were seen to it. By this I mean, let me say direct. Prices were not marked on the items. So how could it have been something that the people could have been benefited from? Prices have a right to be on all items. You know it?
Yeah. Okay. I know that, I don't want to be a cross for here, but I know that they did publish a list of.
No, I'm saying if Doc is saying that you go in a store and let's say there's no price on something, then it's
that's
wrong.
Yeah, that's wrong.
Then it's wrong. Then
Yeah,
it's wrong. Then
yeah.
Economic Affairs is not doing its job, and the minister is not doing his job.
Yeah.
Doc can call me after the program and tell me which supermarket he's referring to or which establishment he's referring to, and then we can look at it and take it from there.
Okay, Doc? All right. Thanks for calling. Yeah. So I guess by law they're supposed to have the price.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. But, there's so many things that businesses sometimes get away with. I can remember there was a time, there was a big business, big established, big name business on the island that when you go and shop, you were getting the price of the item and 5% turnover tax added to it. So I refused to pay and made a big noise and eventually took the receipt to Parliament and confronted the minister about it, and eventually a notice was issued and they said yes, some businesses were applying it wrong. But Economic Affairs should have stepped into that long before.
Let me ask this, MP Marlin now. Recently we had a sad situation in Marlin with the shooting death of Officer Benjamin. And just after that, the government decided, well, we're going to buy bulletproof vests, all kinds of things. I had police officers telling me they had to buy their own. Why the government had to wait this long to do that?
It is one of the things that it was a closed door meeting, yes. And one of the things that I said in that meeting, which I would have said if it was open doors as well, it was wrong to have officers on patrol in Phillipsburg without adequate protection. Because it is not like somebody called and said, there's a fight home in the area where Oral Gibbes lives, and the police drive up to see what's happening. Burglaries have been taking place in town basically every month for the past year, and they've been one more creative than the other one, but they've been getting away with jewelry a galore. Just about 3 weeks before this one, you had the person who dressed up in a uniform like he came to deliver a package, whether it was from DHL or one of those delivery services, while it was a bandit who was holding up the store. Got away scot-free, jumped on a bike, I think, went up the boardwalk, and they got away. These guys would have gotten away as well if the officer didn't come there when he did and confronted them. But now confronting them and without having adequate protection is not right. Government should have known long ago to do something about it. Now to go and make a whole lot of a noise, you have one MP said that he made a phone call and he got 40 vests donated from 4 different government-owned companies. There's another side of the coin that a police officer, in a discussion with him, he was telling me, well, hey, it is not likely that a bike patrol would ride around all day with a heavy and hot bulletproof vest on him either. So, you know, you need to put things into a balance and into proper perspectives. One of the things that people are talking more about is also the whole issue of cameras, security. You go to the French side, and the minute you reach the border, they can see which car is coming, which car is leaving, and if you need to zoom in on a particular, if somebody tell you there was a burglary in Cold Bay, and the getaway car is a red car, you can see the red car pass, and you can freeze the image and probably see who the driver was or anything like that. We have no cameras. And what's interesting, stores on Front Street are selling surveillance camera systems to the citizens. And their properties themselves don't seem to be protected by surveillance cameras. I have a friend who has a system, and it didn't cost no thousands of dollars, and he can stay in his car, put on his phone, and check the cameras at home. He can go on his laptop in his office or anywhere and check his security at home. So if systems are so readily available, the question would be why? We have, as Parliament, we have received information from a presentation from Telem. Telem is saying we are ready to rock and roll, to begin. Not now, more than a year ago. And a year after, still no answer.
MP Marlin, well, thank you for coming in, and all the best. 10 seconds.
Well, we hope all goes well with Erica and that she too disappears like Danny did. But at least people be prepared.
All right. Thanks again.
Hey, thanks.
That's it for now. See you next time. Till then, good night.